Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hi friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of catching up with Sydney Berry, co-owner and president of Salon Services, a beauty supply distributor based in Renton, Washington. Sydney has been a strong supporter of my practice over the years, and I've loved watching her organization grow to new heights. One of my favorite things about Sydney is that her passion for the business has not wavered in the years I've known her. She is still so dedicated not only to her company, but to the industry as a whole. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with her, and I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, Sydney. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. So glad I had an opportunity to get you on the show.
I'm excited too, Jason. We've had a long relationship, so this is great.
Absolutely. No, it's been a pleasure. I mean, you were definitely there in the earliest of my days when I decided to leave the distribution side, come over to the dark side of consulting, and see where that led me. So it's been a fun journey, actually, and really watching your organization grow. But before we get into all of that, could you give us a little history lesson? Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the distribution side. You tell me.
Okay, great. I had a unique beginning in distribution as I started out as a licensed cosmetologist and owned a salon. And I left my state that I was in Nebraska and moved to Seattle and knew that I wanted to do something different. And I took a position with a distributorship called Sebastian of Seattle initially. There was only 3 of us at the time. And that's how I started. And then I was in sales. Then I was sales manager, general manager, president, became the owner of the distribution Salon Services in 1997 with my partner, George Learned. And we've been off to the races since then.
How did you and George get together? Actually, was he part of that organization?
No, he was actually my competitor. And It was so frustrating because he was just amazing competitor. And he was closing his distribution. And I called him and said, hey, I'd love to have you come over here because I think we'd make great partners. And besides being great partners, we've become great friends. So we've been working together since 96 and we co-own as of 1997.
Yeah, that's been a long history with the two of you. And it's really neat how, honestly, I think the two of you can balance each other pretty darn well. I mean, that's really interesting.
We do. He's a sales extraordinaire and he's really into numbers. I'm more into relationships and innovation and learning. So together we just keep each other balanced and have a lot of interesting discussions because of that.
And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to have partnerships in these businesses. Often there's, one side or the other wants to dominate, and it's been fascinating watching the two of you that have co-led this for so long. It's something I couldn't do. I'll be honest with you. I'm not very good at it. I'm not a team player. I know that about myself. So,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So you got into the distribution side and you all got into this business. What were those first few years like? What were the big challenges you ran into in those first few years?
The first few years was that there was no sales. The first year I sold $70,000 and my commission was all of 15%. So I had multiple jobs in order to maintain this job with distribution. And multiple times I thought, nope, not going to stick with it. My accountant said, go back to the salon. You were doing much better there. But I loved distribution. And I loved it because I feel like distribution is the glue. It's the ability to really reach out and touch so many different individuals and to really be a part of the ripple effect of the continuity within the salon, to be able to support them with business and products and knowledge. And so it's just been something that I feel like it's been a calling or a purposefulness for my life, because I just feel the opportunity to be able to touch so many individuals. Because when you think about the services that are provided by the salons and the barbers, they are such givers of themselves. And so it is our task to be able to help them get refilled with whatever we can help them with, because they are totally the most giving industry and relationship driven industry I've ever acknowledged. So it's wonderful to be able to have that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing is that they're so fragmented and so independent. But if you look at these folks, they're all individual entrepreneurs and businesses, and they support people and they support families. And it is a calling. I think you're absolutely correct. And this works really in most phases of distribution that call on smaller independent companies and really make sure that those folks can make a living. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it really has because the service industry, whether we're restaurants or salons, is a platform for business across the United States. The service entity is huge. And so it's been devastated so much by COVID. And so it's really been challenging for our industry.
Yeah, speaking of that, how do you see some of these salon or independent stylists and what? How do you see them surviving this, and how do you see them? What are they doing to make ends meet? Really, I hate to say it that way, but
Yeah. It is really interesting because, like, occupation is limited in King County, so you can't have a full book, you can't double book, and the amount of sanitation that is necessary between clients extends the appointment times. So my son is a hair designer, and he basically is between a third or half of what he used to do in downtown Seattle. But
right,
they are a very, very interesting industry because they are creating unique scenarios. Some people are going mobile and they're no longer working within their salon. They're going to homes. Others are doing a lot of curbside as far as retail pickup, but it's just the elongation of the appointment. Some of our industry is also broken off and gone more into booth rent versus into the salons due to the fact that it's just one on one. And so there's not the safe distancing that's necessary that there is in a larger environment. So there's been a little bit more fracturing that's actually happened because of COVID, because people need to be able to thrive in an environment when it's a difficult one.
and do you see the number of stylists diminishing? I mean, are a lot of them saying, "I just can't make this, and I've got to go get a job somewhere"? Or do you see that population diminish?
Yes, we've seen individuals closing their salons or leaving the industry as well. But I believe that it will continue to thrive. We know that the schools are continuing to have individuals that want to attend. So that is the other side because this is a calling and
Yeah.
people really want to be able to get into this industry. So they're just looking for different avenues of being able to serve.
Well, it's a fun industry. Let's just face it,
Yeah, it
it is a fun industry. I mean, it's enjoyable. I've always enjoyed my time, interacting with your industry. And in a interview I did recently, I got my friend Michael Marks to admit that if he ever came back to distribution, yeah, we would both go into the beauty supply business, but it is a fun industry. And I think you're absolutely right. I'm glad you touched though on the schools because education is a huge part of what you do as distributors. And I think if I look at all the vertical markets that I've worked with, that definitely the beauty supply vertical, you see a lot more distributor education, of the stylists, and that's frankly a big part of your expense.
It is. And it has pivoted very much so since COVID. And so we're doing a lot of virtual education, as are our schools, because it was a
Mhm.
requirement from the government. However, the schools are continuing to be our anchor because what happens within a school when you're getting your cosmetology license, about a third of the time that you are accessing your license, it's all on sanitation and disinfection. And it is a part of our protocol that we anchor ourselves when we go to school. And so it's been interesting watching COVID wash across the United States, whereas other entities have not had this be a pivotal part of what it is that they do ongoingly with their clients, whereas it is a part of our protocols with
Yeah.
sanitation and disinfection. So it's been interesting to see California is not open for salons and it's the only state that is not open. All other 49 states are open, and we've only heard of one incident in Missouri where there was exposure. And out of the 140 clients that came through the doors, nobody got COVID because we were doing the sanitation appropriately with masks on. And that's exactly what we're doing. And so we're frustrated with California not understanding why they're being so solid in their decision. So
Yeah. No, it's an emotionally polarizing issue around that for sure. And it's funny, I caught your Midwesterner accent around Missouri. My mom grew up in Missouri as well. And so, I was like, oh, I know where you're from now.
yep,
I
that's
got
right.
that.
It's
Yeah,
not
I caught
Missouri.
that.
No.
Yeah, yeah, I caught that. If I could pivot back to the creation of the business and the signs of the entity, when you and I met, I mean, this has been, at least 15, if not, closer to 18 years ago. You all had maybe 5 locations. I think we counted up really quickly. And now, how many locations do you have today?
We have 23 locations and 2 distribution sites that we have. We have a skin team of consultants, and
Hmm.
we have a hair team of consultants that cover 9 states now. We started out with half the state of Washington and have organically grown to all the remainder of the states, with the exception of an acquisition that we did last year in Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming. So that has now garnered us the 23 stores and the 9 states.
That's a few more headaches. I mean, a few more opportunities, but a few more headaches. Sometimes from the operational side, I look at that's a few more headaches, but maybe from
Right.
the sales side, George might disagree with us on that.
It is amazing to watch because each and every state is unique in how they are as businesses. And so in certain areas, there are salons that are exceptionally large and have just a lot of energy. And then there's a lot of studios that have 50 sites for booth rents. So they're all different because they have closed doors and you can't access. So it makes it a unique way to be able to help serve them. So there are so many different business models within our industry right now. Ulta
Mhm.
being one of them as well, because they also have stylists in their environment as well.
Mhm. It's an incredibly interesting journey, how you kept expanding this. What was one of the big surprises as you started to expand? What was one of the big interesting things that occurred, or maybe a good win? I'll put it that way.
Okay. Well, our first good win was Oregon. And Oregon was, you're not from around here initially. And that's what it felt like. And so it took a while, but we were able to gain the trust and the respect and have been able to really serve that state. The same was true with Utah because you just think that you have an imprint and a reputation and people will understand that you are there for this purpose and they look at you and you're just not from around here and you don't know how we do things because Utah definitely was unique in how it was that they had positioned themselves, but we have really gained huge traction in all of our states, actually.
Yeah. Well, I remember early on you had shared, when you all had gone into Utah and you had some actually, let's face it, you had some really good success there. And I think I shared with you earlier that I got, my backside handed to me in Utah. So you did really well. Do you know what worked for you all? I can't figure this out.
Well, one of the things that really worked for us with Oregon is that George actually would move down there during the week. And so he really took a personal interest in that area, which was
Hmm.
wonderful because everybody could really relate. Tiffany, our VP of sales, did the same
Yeah.
in Utah. And that made a big difference as well. So when you have someone that's there that really knows and understands how it is that we do it here, makes a big difference. And so those two things really did help. That's one of the areas in Arizona. I also have a home in Arizona and I go down there and I'm out in the field as well there so that they know that there's someone that has a face and relationships with individuals because to me this industry is built on relationships and being able to help foster that makes a much better strengthening of best practices with all of the salons versus seeing each other as competitors. And so those are the types of things that we continuously are fostering is we have dinners at my house, George's house with our clients and events and celebrations so that we are a part of their team. As a matter of fact, we have participated with one of our salons for the last 22 years on creating a retreat that he hosts every year. When we're a part of that, we garner the support of our vendors and we actually participate. Sometimes we present. So we became very involved with all of our salons that really wish to have that type of relationship because we do.
So who's moving to Colorado?
Jordan threatened to do that, but right now we've got a great team on the ground in both New Mexico and Colorado that
Yeah.
came with the acquisition, and they are helping us to guide the way. And our regional manager for sales lives in Colorado, so we really have somebody that knows the lay of the land. So it works out good.
Good. Yeah. And I was just kind of teasing, but I think that's something that we have to consider, when we do these acquisitions,
Mhm.
is that, that cultural fit is a very difficult challenge sometimes.
Yes.
We think we've got the operations down and we can operate in a similar manner, but it's cultural fit. And I think that's where, with you going down to Arizona, Tiffany to Utah, and then George to Oregon, those were some very important things. You brought that culture with you and you brought who Salon Services is, but with an acquisition, that's tough. There's some challenges there.
There is. Fortunately for us, we were very good friends with Robert Stafford throughout the years.
Got
He
it.
basically had been in distribution for approximately the same amount of time. And so when we started this process, we basically talked to him every day as far as different items. And so that it would be as smooth of a transition as possible. We actually went in a month before the purchase was completed so that we could meet and have them understand who Salon Services was. So we did it uniquely in that we wanted to extend a baton that everybody would know who we were and that we weren't just coming in and taking everybody out, that we really wanted to bring them on to what it was that we were creating with our other 6 states with them. And we did know them. We knew the majority of their staff from trips that we had done with different vendors. So that also helped. So they knew who we were from one of
Mhm.
the biggest vendors that we were working with in Colorado. So it worked out.
That's great. No, and I think, I've had good acquisitions and bad acquisitions, and oh boy, the better the relationship up front. I think you just kind of hit on something very, very important. The more you know about that company,
Mhm.
and again, you all probably spend a lot of time through originally the BBSI and then now PBA. You all really knew each other very well and stayed in contact. I think that would really help in a marriage of those two, organizations. But yeah, sometimes I've been through some nasty ones, ones that you thought, wow, that was really a bad idea. And if I ask my brother, sometimes he will say, yeah, I've maybe hit a couple bad ones over the years, but yeah, it
Yeah,
happens.
it did. And it was so unique because we did this acquisition in July of last year, and then having COVID hit mid March, and
Hmm.
each one of our states was very different. In Colorado had counties, and so did Washington, that opened and closed. So each state was very different in how they closed and in how they reopened. So it
Hmm.
was like watching a jigsaw puzzle continuously come back together again because Colorado was one of our first ones.
Yeah.
And then they came back fast. But yeah, it was a very unique time.
Absolutely. And I think operationally, you have to be prepared for those types of things, that you have to be nimble enough to handle that type of change quickly. And, let's face it, over the years that at least since I've known you, there's been a lot of operational changes in your organization. I think when I first met you, I don't know how e-commerce focused you were, but you came on you've come on obviously very, very strong in that endeavor. How did that change the makeup of the organization, really from more of an operational bent? What changes did you have to make in order to make that happen?
Well, yeah, e-com took a while because we started it about 6 years ago. And initially, people were not as attuned to it, but we had multiple consultants that were excellent and could really help mimic and imitate their salon so they could help them with their orders itself.
Hmm.
And so now we have between about 85% of all of our orders do come through B2B. And
Hmm.
right now we're really working on the B2C very actively because that definitely was a financial lifeline for the salons during the shutdown because their customers were still wanting the products. And so we
Yeah.
stayed open throughout COVID. And basically, all that we were supplying were our B2C clients and not our B2B. So, digital is just so fascinating to me. And it is something that I see so many different avenues of opportunity with the different marketplaces that are happening and how
Hmm.
we engage in our virtual meetings in a way that does create the same relationship almost to face. And it really becomes that vulnerability, that transparency, and over communicating. And so we are doing as much as we possibly can with that level of communication, especially while we were going through COVID. There was so much that we did as far as daily meetings with leadership. We had between a half an hour and an hour every day about what we needed to do because one state started to open and another state didn't. And we need to bring back our people. And we actually have been training on virtual sales. We have a trainer that is helping us to learn and understand how it is to be unique in our approach virtually while it resembles in person. And so she's doing giving us a great opportunity to be able to do that. We actually have done coffee talks in the mornings, happy hours at nights. We have an Ask Tiffany Anything communication, which
Yeah.
is wonderful because when you are coming back and we're changing all of the job descriptions and how we function because of COVID. And we have Ask Leadership. We've done formats for and with different speakers for our salons to be able to have an opportunity to learn about how leadership is transitioning, and it allows them to really feel like they have something to grab onto. So we've
Hmm.
hosted community meetings on Zoom and these different speakers on Zoom, which has been very helpful because we felt like they were so alone initially. And we've done a lot of outreach. We've done phone calls to our top 50 clients and continue to keep doing that. So, over communication has been something that we've really been working on. It has always been our relationship that's really driven the success that Salon Services has.
Hmm.
At a time in 1990, sorry, it was 1999, that we lost several of our vendors, and it took about two-thirds of our business. And everybody thought we were going to go out of business, but our salons rallied and they all transitioned to the new vendors we brought on. And
Hmm.
it made a huge impact in our ability to continue be able to thrive because of that relationship that they always said, you have always been here for us. We're here for you.
Interesting. Boy, the communication side. And I just, if I could go back and touch on something you mentioned that, the changing of the roles. And, one of the big changes in your organization has really been that role of the consultant that has really changed quite a bit. And just for clarification for everyone, that this is sometimes we'll call them outside salespeople, in other vertical markets, but they're sales consultants in the beauty supply business. So could you tell me a little bit about their transition and, how easily they've adapted to this transition?
Well, that's where the Tiffany anything really does come into play. Initially, they were just waiting for everything to open up and they'd go back out face to face. And that is not what we envisioned that would happen because
Yeah.
you needed to have an appointment to go within a salon. And you also were taking up valued time because the salons could only have so many people in there. And so for you as a consultant to go in, it wasn't appropriate at that time. And so right now we're calling them more of a hybrid, but we're finding that with the preparation that's necessary with a virtual meeting, that we're actually having better results because there's more of a curiosity and more of a dialogue about where are you at, what are your needs versus, hey, I got a new product I want to show you. So it ends up being much more of a planning session, and they're really, our consultants have done a great job in this. And that's one of the things that they're learning is how to do prospects now with the virtual trainer,
Hmm.
because that is definitely a harder role from where they came from with the face to face. But
Hmm.
finding that people are really responsive to a phone call. Our prospecting person, she actually calls it coffee talk. Could I have
Yeah.
coffee with you? So it ends up being then a really great opportunity to see people pivot, and they've pivoted and have done beautifully. So it's been wonderful to see. Our stores have been absolutely amazing because we had one store out of 23 that was able to stay open throughout. It was in Draper in Utah, and it never closed.
Yeah. I know where Draper is. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so curbside. So these individuals, as the different areas opened up, did curbside. And so they were doing massive work in stocking their shelves and then filling these orders and being able to serve their clients with the ability. I actually heard stories about people meeting at the door and saying, I loved what you purchased. Have you ever thought of? And so they were helping just at the touch point of the curbside in helping to give them guidance from that perspective. So, yeah, the stores have been amazing in their ability to help recapture and strengthen because we have to have occupancy in our stores as well. So
Sure.
they have to wear masks and
Yeah.
sanitize and all the
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah. It's challenging. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I despise putting on a mask. I could not imagine having to do that an entire day, and moving around so as much as they do, and moving around. But I think you touched on something that it's really, I think as a leader, you really are looking for those creative moments, looking for that ability to tap into that creativity. I truly believe that every one of the people that work with you and for you have a creative moment in them. They have creativity in them. And it's how do you get into that? And I think this has been a great opportunity for you to see some of that come to the surface.
It has. And what has been beautiful is that there's been so many distribution learnings that have been online from Mark Dancer with Innovate to Dominate,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
with distribution strategy with Jonathan and Ian, and MDM with Michael Marks and Tom Gale and the NAW. And I really took advantage of watching all of their webinars and learning new sets of thought because like Bruce Merrifield was doing one on how outside sales started to change in different areas of business about
Hmm.
20 years ago. Ours had not. And so it really gave me an understanding of how different companies did shift. And that's exactly what we have embraced is being able to shift and to learn from other entities because distribution, while we have different componentry, we are still the center and anchor and education and relationship for our clients. And so that's what I have found just an extensive amount of resource in our industry.
Absolutely. Very, very, strong thought leaders in the industries and really people that, I've admired, for years, watching, as my practice has grown. But frankly, before I left the distribution side, seeing some of these faces, really sharing them. And I think it's been fascinating watching them really step up, honestly, in the last, maybe
Yes.
6 months. I mean, they're far more prolific. Now, maybe it's because we can't speak on stages anymore. I mean, got to find some other places to peddle our wares. But I've found that, yes, that there is so much more content out there and so many more resources. And really, people just need to go out and grasp it, and go out and take advantage of it because it's there right now. And might as well take advantage of it before we start adding paychecks to it.
Right,
So
exactly. And when you
good.
were talking about education, I was going to say that
Yeah.
we still do have education inside of salons if a salon wishes, and we have several educators that feel comfortable in doing it. But the majority of all of our education right now is pre-recorded or live virtually. And we are finding that that is excellent. I mean, that's how the students are learning in school. They actually have their mannequin heads and they're working with an instructor over Zoom so that they are doing the right protocols with their
Hmm.
mannequin heads instead of a real
Yeah.
person. But the same is true now with the salons. So we're seeing a difference.
It's interesting, watching because I can recall, coming into your facility there in Renton and looking at that huge educational room that you had there and just imagining the different programs that you have in there. And now, what do you use that room for? That room is
Marketing materials. That's it. It's an
okay. All right.
extension of
Okay.
our
All right.
warehouse.
That's the broom closet. That's the
Yeah.
large broom closet, for all the literature. Fair enough. If I could switch gears here, one of the things I did want to touch on is you have been a lifelong supporter of the trade associations and, from BBSI to now PBA. And recently you have been elected to chair the Professional Beauty Association, PBA. Yeah. And, I don't know if I should say congratulations or, maybe you just left the room at the time when they said, okay, somebody's got to chair this thing. But no, you've been a longtime supporter of organizations. And why? Why get involved to such a degree? I mean, I think that you've probably been more than many others I've met.
I love collaboration. And that's exactly what I have received when I was a part of the BBSI. I was on volunteer committees. And then when we repositioned to have our vendors, our salons, our stylists, and distribution all be a part of the PBA, it really did give a great opportunity to really bond together. And I've really enjoyed the people that I learned from because when you have all of the different entities together, we all have a better understanding of what each one of us is going through or needs than when we were siloed. And that to me is a gift. And being chair, yes, people are, oh, yeah, Sid, you needed one more job. I wanted this one opportunity in life to see what it is that can be continued to further the opportunity to collaborate within our industry. And so I'm learning a lot. I'm meeting more people than I've met before as far
Yeah.
as different vendors and different individuals that have really made a difference in their area. And so it's giving me a great opportunity to get to know people on an even stronger basis than those that I initially worked with PBA. So I love our industry and I really want to see it thrive. And I believe thriving can occur when we do connect in this way because I've seen it. So that's why I stay involved.
Yeah, yeah, and no, it's really inspirational because I know that there are so many people that join organizations like this. They put their name in, they pay a dues, they might
Right.
even show up to one of your events, but they don't necessarily raise their hand to serve. And from personal experience, that was the pivotal change in my career. Was when I raised my hand and said, yes, I'm willing to serve on my association
Uh-huh.
board, and then for several years, and then for me at least, the rewards were just astronomical. I mean, what I got back from that, not only a personal gratification, but people, reaching out and as you said, collaborating and really trying to help me move forward. So,
Right. And what was interesting is the way I did get involved, there was a distributor that was chairing the BBSI at the time. And he said, Sydney, you got to sign up. And I'm not going to not let you sign up because you need to do this. And it was that outreach. It's just people telling you that to be involved is so much more significant than to sit on the fringes because you can sit on the fringes and complain about things that aren't going right, or you can get involved and make the changes that you want to see happen.
it was funny. One of my good friends, and he used to refer to those as the bleacher creatures. He wanted to be out on, he wanted to be out on the field. He's not going to be a bleacher creature. And I said,
That's
that
right.
is a great way to put it, my friend. So,
Right. I always want to be in the ring. That's what I want.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No. Well, I congratulate you for stepping up to this new role. And I think you'll have fun again. It's just these are fun things to get involved with. And I think you never know what's going to come of it.
Right.
You never know. And I think that's the excitement or the interest in doing this. Well, Sydney, it's absolutely been a pleasure catching up with you, and I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. 1 year later, but we were able to make it happen. So
Yes. And thank you for all that you've contributed to Salon Services, Jason. We have taken seminars from you. We have had you coach inside of our distribution with our operations and with purchasing. And so it's been remarkable. And just right now, I'm hiring you to coach another new individual within our organization. So I would highly suggest if anybody wants to learn from the best, contact Jason because he is a phenomenal individual that really helps to break paradigms. So thank you.
So am I sending that check to Washington or Arizona? Where's that plug check going to? So, Sydney, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been absolutely a pleasure working with your company. As you said, working with so many different individuals, and it's been a lot of fun. And I look forward to working with your new individual that I will be speaking with tomorrow, actually.
Oh,
so yes, I have an appointment with her tomorrow. So
great.
anyhow, again, thank you so much for taking the time and really appreciate it. And of course, if I can ever be of service, you know where to find me.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thanks again. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.